Okay, Pete, what's your question?
So, when you're talking about Mars and Saturn in a night chart and a day chart,
Yeah.
and thinking about the power, um, for me, like Mars is an additive planet, and Saturn pulls away. So, I'm curious why.
You
Sa-
define why that would be.
well, if I think of Saturn as limiting, right, it sort of can remove things, and if that has more power in a day chart, I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't it be reversed? Why wouldn't Mars, which is an additive planet,
I'm going to
be
challenge
more
you on that
prolific?
assumption right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, I guess
So,
I knew I was a little confused about it, so I just
yeah.
wanted to bring
Let's
that up.
think of, children's pools, those inflatable pools. I want you
Hmm.
to think of Saturn as the inflatable pool that is going to contain the water. So it's limiting, but it's absolutely necessary. It's not taking away anything. It creates the pool. Do you see what I mean? Like in the way that walls create the home. And in the same way, Mars itself is actually about cutting, severing, separating, as much as it is about taking action and doing stuff and getting stuff done. It's all a question of the energy behind the planet. What is it doing here? Mars in hard aspect, you want to think more in terms of that, the causing trouble, the separating, the penetrating that is a little too much. It's causing disruption, or it's severing something, cutting something off, especially if there's a conjunction. There can be a real challenge that requires a lot of adaptation from the other planet that it's conjoined. You see what I'm saying? So there's a, really we want to broaden our understanding of the role of the planets. And as soon as if you get into binaries, it's going to be this or that. You haven't you haven't expanded the planet's role enough. And especially with Mars, for example, in the daytime, it's still there. It's still absolutely active, but it may be actually the sort of little stone in the shoe. Whereas Mars at night is going to be that force that is actually really what you're doing something with it. You're actually working with it. It's not that you're not working with the stone in the shoe, it's getting your attention for sure, but it's doing something in a way that is less, um, let's say, upfront than the Saturn would be in the daytime. So the response to challenge will be more Saturn than Mars. Night chart with a Mars, for example, might be a Mars that is acting first, thinking later. And it doesn't mean that this is always the case because we have to look at everything, the sign of the Mars and the challenges that come from other planets. What house is it in? All of those things matter. Um, Mars in the nighttime, the Scorpio type Mars is acting like think of it like the Godfather, like it's there, it's acting, and you're terrified of this damn Mars, and it's sitting there, and you know it's coming, but you don't know how, and you don't know when, and you don't know in what form. Mars in the daytime, that Aries type Mars, it's going to yell at you. It's just going to cause a fit. It's going to throw the table over and it's going to run out screaming or run at you screaming. You know what that Mars is doing. You know exactly what you're in for with that kind of Mars. So think of it in those ways. Like think of it as like, how can I grapple with the energy of this planet? Is it in my face and I can deal with it and I know what's coming? Or is it a little bit kind of coming from the side? Or is it a little bit kind of, it's not necessarily going to be in its best on its best behavior, let's say, when it's not comfortable in that sense, when it's not comfortable by sign or by sect or by house placement. So it's going to sneak up on you instead of come
Uh,
out.
That makes a lot of sense. The Scorpio Mars makes a lot of sense
Yeah. And
with the nighttime. And
it's that vengeance is served up cold.
yeah,
That's the Scorpio Mars. Like yeah, I heard you. I'm not going to react now.
would you think of Saturn then in Capricorn as that kind of diurnal expression?
And so that's the nighttime expression. So we have
Okay.
Aquarius is the daytime
Oh,
expression.
so it'd be Aquarius. Okay.
Yeah. So Saturn in Aquarius is the daytime expression. And what do you do in the daytime?
Yeah, with
You get out, go
in the
out the door.
world.
You go and hang
Yeah.
out in the coffee shop and you go and see your friends and you're doing your work and you're doing your thing and you're engaging in life, but in that
Mm.
Saturn way. And in Capricorn, it's like, just leave me alone. I got this project to finish. I want to do this thing. Close the door when you leave. Uh, Everybody stop yelling. I'm trying to concentrate. This is that Saturn quality, which has a project. I have to do this thing. I'm going to build this thing. And it's just the same Saturn, but coming in a different form. So the Aquarian Saturn is like, guys, bring another table. We need two tables together. We're going to put 8 chairs here. And we're going to sit at this. This Saturn is structuring the socializing in Aquarius, or it's structuring the vision for the building or the dream or whatever the thing is. And the Capricorn is like, look, we've got this material, we've got to do something with this thing, we've got this much money in the budget or whatever. It's in the here and now material, earthly way of expressing. The nightly energy of it is much more, it's not showy. You see, that's a very Capricornian thing. Capricorn is very discreet. If you have a Venus in Capricorn, well, actually a Venus in any Saturn ruled sign, but a Venus in Capricorn will never kick up a fuss. It's not a Venus in Leo. She's not going to have a fight out on the street. She's going to argue when you get home, and we'll talk about this. So it's this quality of what is it's conservative. It's quite literally conservative in that earthly, Saturnine, practical way. Whereas Aquarius Saturn is in the let's see what we can do with all of this stuff. Let's see how we can build this kind of thing. Or if we're thinking of Saturn as the divisional, like little component parts of a society, it's the blue-haired people over here, and it's the ones with the tattoos over there. And it's like the people who listen to heavy metal, they're over here. They might cross paths every now and then. They might feel like this is part of the same society, but actually there's little pockets of Saturn throughout society. See, so
That
that's
makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, good. All right. Um, yeah, so let's use your in the common you and especially yours, Pete, imagination. When you think about these planets, think about them. I really resonate personally. I find it easier to think about them as little characters. Think of them like a little cartoon character. What is his role? What's he doing? What's she doing? Is she comfortable? Does she like where she is at this moment? Does she need something? What would she need in that context? And I think if you can get to that place where you're not personalizing on the sense of the individual necessarily in front of you, but on the action of that planet. And you're giving it that little personality and you're giving it a role. And especially in terms of the direct or retrogressive, and where you're looking at a planet that is like, I'm not comfortable here. I kind of want to go back here. So there's a way of feeling your way into the planet and really experiment with that. Don't stick to the book and say, oh, this is what it means, and this is how it's represented. So this is how I need to show up. Be very intuitive with that and say, oh, yeah, I get the feeling of this. I get the vibe of this Saturn. And if your first hit when you look at a chart is, gosh, this doesn't feel comfortable, trust that, hold it, like just let it hang there, and then look for why this might be a problem and inquire with the native. Why would this be a problem? What's going on with you? And why, when I do this teaching the way I'm doing it, why it might feel kind of tending towards the negative is more that we are trying to grapple with what this person is not easy or at ease with in their life, and to get them to the place where they can find the ease. So if we come at it with all the light and fluff, and this is all fabulous, look at this gorgeous Venus that you have, look at this amazing Jupiter that you have, it's all great, don't you worry. They're going to be thinking, what the hell is wrong with me that I'm actually so dissatisfied in my life? And so we want to actually show them, yeah, gosh, that must have been hard. That must have been really challenging having that experience, or look what your parents were going through. And that's how you were picking up that energy. And then when you get from that place and you take them to the solution, there's a being seen that can be done only through the Saturn way, the thing that was the problem, the thing that was the challenge, the obstacle, the thing that you're feeling is perhaps still today a burden. But we can't pretend that life doesn't come with these difficulties. And I think it's a disservice to our clients or to anybody that we're not acknowledging that. So Mar, you said it's so you. I'm not sure what's you. Was that the
I
Saturn?
meant to say Saturn is my first house and my sun is in the ninth house.
Yeah.
So it makes a day chart, and that's exactly the behavior that you described. Obviously, we have other ingredients, right? But
Yeah.
it's still that.
Can we just look at your chart? Because then you mentioned the sun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there we go. Let's have a look here. Mm, there we go. Okay, so this is Mars chart. She has a Virgo sun in the ninth, and she's got this. This is that generational stellium that went from 1989 to 1991, where we have some version of the conjunction between Uranus and Neptune. And in the 1989 version, it actually was with Saturn, which was quite intense, which was why 1989 was so intense. And that's why also, by the way, we will have a different type of change because we have Saturn, Neptune now, 25, 26 conjoined. We will have a different quality of change because we don't have Uranus. We have now a sextile from Uranus, but Uranus is not trying to figure out how this chaos is going to look. It's more insightful, more inventive. But that again, remember, these are also malefics. In my way of looking at this is malefic. It's not easy. So Mars, Mar, would you like to tell us a little bit about that quality of the sun? Because we're looking, that's one of the things we're looking at today, is the sun and the moon, the quality of the sun, with a very exalted, happy Mercury in both its place of exaltation as well as rulership. So a very strong Mercury at the top of the chart. And I'm just looking, yeah, there we go. So we've got Mercury also kind of trining the ascendant as well. I mean, it's a broad trine. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks, Pete.
well,
See you next time.
well, first of all, I do thank you about guiding us through the situation where my son and the South Node in the house next to it. And, definitely somebody like Vic Dicara would have a big debate over here.
Yes.
But what I wanted to say, I do feel it. The Obviously we know that the how can I say it? The knowing that you can do and the ability of like step into it is just too much of overthinking.
Yeah.
Over so obviously there was you would know like, oh, I can just go and I can let's say I was thriving in a theater performances through my childhood. But when I got to my adulthood, there was never a notion of like, oh, I should have a company or I should do, and doors were open and things, it just required a little bit of just do it, like what is your oyster? And there's so many, like being blessed with so many opportunities, but at the same time, like, no, 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 life is not fair. You don't deserve it. You have to help. You have to go. You have to give it up. Everybody else will hear you.
You see,
So
this is that 12th house. I mean, if we look at that first house and as a 12th house property, we've got Uranus, Saturn, Neptune all retrograde in the first decan of Capricorn, which can be again interpreted towards the 12th house. So it's something that it's this feeling of I don't deserve that. I don't deserve any of these things. I'm not good enough, or I have to work hard. I really have to struggle my way through all of this. So it's part of the dynamic that you're born into that was strong for you.
something I mentioned with Sheen today that there's Mars right now transiting through my Venus, and I feel like I am missing chaos of New York, and actually I have to fly back to New York. But I was just saying, like, I can't believe I'm looking for chaos again. Like I do have everything, and everything is steady, but it's too quiet. It's too, the volumes of the job. It, Again, it's so much appreciated here in the community. But what I have done in the past, it's like not even one could think of it. So,
Yeah,
um,
the chaos is the Mars ruled fourth house, right? Mars ruled fourth house, the Mars in the ninth house, which is questing nonstop after something new, got to grow, got to improve, got to do something better, got to get out there, got to do whatever. And it's an ambitious energy, this Mars. And then that also being the exaltation ruler of your first house of all that Capricorn, where there is internally this sort of kind of unconscious kind of a sense of nothing's quite right. Things are they're not yet in place. They'll get in place, but we're not there yet. And so there's a lot of literal chaos around the time that you were born. And if we see you're born in Ukraine, just for those who aren't familiar with Mars, you're born in Ukraine in August 1989, which is almost like the chart of Ukraine. You see the
Yes,
national,
Independence Day. Yeah,
yeah,
it's August 24th.
right. So
Yeah. And
this,
also, I am born, sorry, don't mean to interrupt. I'm born on the border of Slovakia and close to Hungary and Romania, in like all this intersection of the most desirable, entrance to between the Eastern European world and Western. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So we can see how the natal chart and how the experience of the parents, because we're looking at Mars chart, but it's the transits of her parents and it's their life, their experience is reflected and embodied then by Mar. Then she comes through and she's carrying this, what the hell is going on kind of energy. It's like all before everything was like this. Now nothing seems to line up and it's scary. And we literally have Mars in a square to the moon in the sixth house of duty and obligation. I got to figure this out. And it's squared by Mars or squaring Mars, and it's in conjunct Pluto. So there's a real chaos about the literal sense of home. What do we do now? What do we do today? And it shows as you're a kind of a little like an icon or a kind of a mascot for what was going on in Ukraine in that particular moment in time and what was going on in the life of your parents. So that's where the chaos comes from. And when we can digest that and understand, oh wait, this chaos is what I experienced, but I need to then work with that. And then we come to the remedy. We need to work with the energy of Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus to stabilize the interior, stabilize the experience of life, to question this dissatisfaction. That's the Mars Virgo energy, the dissatisfaction that makes us search and search and search and reach into something else and recognize that it actually can be part of the problem. That is the thing that we think we don't want, but we're creating our own problem. So it's a restlessness that is once it comes to your consciousness, then you realize, oh, there's a way through this, through spirit, through stabilizing, through becoming my own inner authority, my own inner guru, as it were, with that Saturn, through connecting to lineage. That's also the 12th house connection here, that Uranus as well is being creative and finding new ways, new structures, new ideas around how to do things. That doesn't have to be destabilizing. It's just going to be different. And that you need to personalize that. You want to embody that or personalize that. Donna,
Yeah. The
Donna has a question. It might be about your chart. I'd like to hear from Donna then. Where did you come in? I've just lost you. Donna, can you unmute?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sorry to interrupt too. But Susan, earlier you were talking about Mars there and, saying, okay, we've got Mars up there in the ninth, and then you see the connection to the fourth, with Aries. But then you're like, okay, and Mars in its exaltation, we go to the first house. So I follow all of
No, no, no.
that.
Yeah. So Mars as the ruler of the first exalted. Mars is not exalted, not at all. You see?
Right. It's not exalted where
Yeah.
it is. However, Mars, if to put it where it would be exalted, you go to the first house.
Right.
And so I'm struggling a little bit with the whole rulership thing. I get the concepts and everything. It's just like trying to
Yeah. All
do
I'm
it
doing,
myself.
yeah. All
So
I'm doing with that exaltation thing is mentioning that Mars has an affinity, we'll call it an affinity rather than the exaltation, has a strong affinity with Capricorn. Right?
mm,
It's determined. But what is making it determined is a certain sense of endless questing that is in that Virgo way, coming from a place of dissatisfaction. I don't like this. I need something better. I want something different. I want something, and it's multiplied by the fact that Mars rules the 11th, where we find the midheaven, and Pluto, where there's this sense of the social plane or the future and a need to change that, a need to reintegrate, a need to be different or show up differently in society. And that was literally what Mars was born into in Ukraine. So
okay.
there's the ruler of her ascendant is very powerful. It's retrograde. When planets are retrograde, we can say we'll talk about that in the future. I don't want to it's too much to talk about everything all at once, but the retrograde planets are strong. They're not weakened in any way. They're very strong because that retrograde cycle keeps them very kind of slow moving most of the time. And that is the ruler of the first house. And it shows that there's a determination and a strength and a courage that's inherent. It's going to operate and give her this sense of can do. It's even broadly in a trine. It's not a very powerful trine, but it's still 6 degrees is a solid trine to Mars. And so there's a tie-in. So think of that Mars or any planet exalted as having a role to play that is in affinity with that particular sign. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the energies from these other houses, from the first and the 11th, because of the rulerships that relate to Mars, are kind of coming into play. They're kind of working with each other.
Yeah, and also we were talking earlier about the chaos or the feeling of the chaos that she has. So if we're talking about somebody's feelings, we have to go to the fourth house. We have to understand this is the psychological reference point. It's like the emotional, psychological foundation of a person in the fourth house. We see the other way of looking at that is the moon, but the fourth house is the first place to look. What's going on in the fourth? Well, it's ruled by Mars that's never satisfied. And the moon itself is ruled by Mercury in the sixth house of duty, obligation. I have to get this done. I must work hard. And that Mercury is extremely important in this chart at the very top of the chart in the ninth house, which is also ninth house is quite favorable. Overall, it's the joy of the sun, for example. When the sun is in the ninth, it's a really brilliant placement for the sun. So it mollifies whenever there's a problem with the sun. It helps the sun. It boosts the sun. And especially having the ruler with the sun. And this is not a Mercury or even really Mars that is under the beams of the sun. They're operating in their own way. They're not as powerfully disturbed as if they were closer in degree to the sun. And that Mercury is ruling the sixth house of every day. So the Mercury in Virgo knows exactly what it wants and what it's doing. And it's based on something that has that ninth house questing nature. It's like, I've got a bigger plan. I've got a better idea. Um, Mark comes also from a family of scientists and researchers and people who work in the university type level. So this is also part of that story. There's these like almost describing literally an engineer or a researcher. And even if we take that from the 12th house, then all of this goes into the 12th house, which is all also referencing research and doing things behind the scenes and looking for something behind the scenes. So you can see multiple layers of how the chart expresses itself through the individual.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
And don't worry, if this feels like a lot, it is a lot. And we will keep repeating these things week by week with different charts. And then at a certain point, it's just like, oh, of course, of course. And when we look at charts of famous people or people that you know personally, like maybe we'll be looking at your own charts, for most of you will look at them for sure. Hopefully everybody. And you'll get that sense of, oh, right, yeah, of course, that's why that. And then once you click that, you understand the principle of it and you can apply it in different ways. Okay. What I'm trying to ingrain is not remember this or that. I'm trying to get you to understand the principle behind why. And once you've understood the principle, you can apply it in any circumstance. So, Mara, did you want to have any last comments on your chart before I want to look at
I
it?
wanted to just maybe importance for our group to understand. So I grew up without knowing who my father is. So mother was the one who would make decisions. And since 7 months, a year old, I grew up with her parents, so maternal parents. So we can see this the situation also that we have with Saturn and correlation to Sun and South Node. And I just thought it would be, since it's the theme that we started looking my chart into, it would be important to address it among the all other things that are
That's
happening there.
brilliant. And I will come back to your chart later when we talk about the nodal axis, conjunctions on the nodes. And I just wanted to
Yeah.
emphasize this is one brilliant example of why it's important not to think in terms of, oh, the south node is the past and the north node is where you're going. It's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on with the south node? It's being ruled by the sun. And it's with the sun. The sun only just met it 2 days before, 3 days before. It was just literally conjoined. That means that she's born just after an eclipse. So there was an eclipse like maybe on the 21st of August. I can't remember the date, but anyway, we'll look at those things when we look at the notes. So that was a full moon eclipse. And that means, again, we're looking at the south node from the place of what is lacking, what's being taken away, what has disappeared, what is not present, or what is not available, and that's this. And now what that translates into in terms of the role of the sun in Mars experience is a doubt around one's self-identity, one's way of experiencing oneself. And that becomes part of the questing of the sun in the ninth house, which is who the hell am I and what does life mean and why am I here? And so this is where we see, we'll look at this chart again because it's a great chart to work with. All right, thank you, Mark. That's amazing. Noreen, would you be okay with me pulling up your chart?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to have a look at. And can I call you Noreen? What shall I call you?
Oh, yes.
Maria. We'll call you
As she was saying that, I'm like, it's going to be so hard to legally change my name, but maybe it's just telling myself. Go
I
ahead.
think the way she first described it was change the spelling. And so you keep calling yourself Noreen, but in your mind, you change the spelling. That's the most important place to change your name. In your mind.
As she, I agree with what you're saying, but when she said that, like the first thing that came to my head was just, spell it with an I, because I've seen so many people spell it with an I, and then she said that.
Okay. So here now, to come to your son, and for those who weren't in the conference with Roisin, what the issue was this name, Noreen's name, and we won't go into the details, but the name obviously is very personal to us. It's our identity, right? It's who we are. What's that? That's first and foremost, it's the sun. So where the ascendant is how we show up in the world, like how we feel when we go out into the world, or how people vibe with us. That's like if you think of it as the filter that we engage with in the world. The sun is who we think we are. It's how we conceive of ourselves. And so when we have the sun here well, actually, let me ask you about the sun. So I'm not saying,
yeah, I'm sure you could explain it well. There's no way of denying anything that's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's define what is going on with this sun. Okay, so we've got a sun in Libra. So what's happening in terms of the dignities of the sun?
Oh, it's in fall. Yeah.
Yeah, so the sun is in fall in Libra because
Aries it rules Aries. Yeah.
No, because
I'm sorry.
Fall is different to detriment, remember? So detriment means it's opposite sign of its rulership, and fall is in the opposite sign of its exaltation. So the fall and exaltation, and then there's detriment and rulership. Okay, so we can call it in exile as well, but detriment is the common word. And so here we have a sun in fall, because normally the sun is just like all glory in Aries, and that describes the personality type also of an Aries. But here we have a sun that is much more inhibited, you could call it, because of being in its fall. And it's inhibited for a number of different reasons. Can we keep going down the line and see what's going on?
Mm-hmm. You want me to talk through it?
If you or anybody, this could be anybody. Okay. If anybody can jump in, and let's examine the sun. And I'm doing this particularly because we've just had this understanding of Noreen in terms of what identity she's carrying, and the issue in her family as a lineage, which we can see fourth house lineage is about identity in many ways. Okay. So the notion of identity, the notion of father, the notion of purpose and self is very strong here, but it's ambiguous. There's nothing that's really solid and determined in this particular version of the sun. Okay, so we're trying to understand that from this perspective. Anybody want to have a shot, or Noreen can keep going if you want?
I mean, you've got the sun and moon together, so there was a new moon.
There was a new moon, yeah. So what happens at a new moon? What is going on if we think about the notion of what is actually, if we think about the moon as a little person, the little mother, for example, or the interior experience of life, what happens when the moon meets the sun?
It's invisible.
It's invisible. It's invisible. So now we have a sun that's in its fall, and we have a moon that is made invisible by this sun, and the moon is, well, I'm going to just say it because I started the sentence. The moon is the sect light, right? So the sun is not the sect light, which means it's also not very strong. And the moon, which should be strong, is hidden because it's a new moon. And what is the role of the moon in this chart?
Mother.
It's
Yes,
yeah,
mother, but and
because
yeah,
it's a night chart. Yeah,
yeah, because it's a, but what is the role of the moon in this chart?
the mother, is that what you,
Yes, and
or how I feel mostly in
think
the
about
house
the
in
chart.
fourth
Think
house.
not about you, but think about the natal.
Oh, it's my ascendant ruler.
Is the ascendant ruler.
Yeah.
So look at this, even in, we're only looking here, sun, moon, and ascendant, and we've already seen that there's a huge issue of identity and connection through that identity, through the father, through the mother. There's a something that cannot be fully expressed. And then and that was the kind of discussion that was had around the name, that Roisin felt that Noreen's name was not her name, not appropriate. It was, she's not even named correctly. Do you see
You
what
know what I just realized? It didn't come to me when we were talking to her. I told the story that my mother told, but my father, my mom hardly speaks about it, but my father all the time, because my father's still upset about it. My father wanted to name me my first name, my middle name's Renee. So my father wanted to name me Renee, but my mother said, no, we're naming her Noreen, and Renee can be the middle name. And then she put the accent over the, what is it, the N. I just write it regular, but without any accent. But then because my father was angry about it, he's like, so she made it your middle name, and then she put the accent on it. And so it becomes like it's like a huge thing between my parents, but you can see that high conflict, not just in the fourth house, but in the fifth house.
Well, that's the whole point. So your ruler,
Yeah.
she's pissed off. They're pissed off. They're not in a situation at ease, right? There's a conflict here. We've got Uranus causing some distress, causing some trouble here, and she's ruling all of this, right? She's even ruling the Chiron that is opposing the Mars that really wants to take action, that it's all about this child, this fifth house.
Yeah.
And do you understand what the meaning of Renee is?
I don't know. I've never looked it up.
So it's a French name, and it means to be rebirthed, to be reborn, renaître.
Renee.
It's to be born again.
Right.
So you might want to start calling yourself Renee.
Renee. Yeah. I've actually gone by Renee before in the past. Yeah.
So
for people that I don't want to tell them all my information because I have so much Scorpio energy, I'll say Renee.
Right. Yeah. So you might consider that as, as an identification of something that is meaningful to you, that is already part of your lineage, because we're not trying to disrupt, we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we're trying to find something that feels more solidly in line with who you are. And when you find that, when you understand that, you are able then to operate from a clarity, from a place of I exist, I have a mission, I have a goal, I have a purpose, and it doesn't feel like everything has to be as an adjunct or as a, catering to somebody else, etc. So this is.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the story of my life. It's catering to my family problems.
Well, of course, the fourth house.
Yeah.
This is also why when we look at sun and moon, so I think this was in your homework as well, and I signaled that potential, where often people think, oh, Cancer is the sign on the fourth house, the moon rules the fourth house, therefore the moon is comfortable in the fourth house. And I have to tell you that's not the case. First of all, we have to look at what is the moon. So in this case, it's a Libra moon ruled by a Venus that's not comfortable. She's being bothered, let's say, by Mars and Uranus. So she's kind of not comfortable. And it's trining the ascendant, so that is partly referring back to the individual of the chart, that the person we're talking about, this is the person as they show up. I'm born into this, and there's a little discomfort around me, right? Just literally about the naming, as you mentioned.
Oh, and there were problems with the way my parents kept having children. There was so much conflict with them because they had so many children and there was so much conflict. So yeah, I'm not going to say I was a wanted child. There was just a conflict giving birth to me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we see that already because we've got a Mars, which is almost an exact, almost like this is 4 arc minutes of a degree of a sextile from this Saturn, which is ruled by
Saturn's ruled by in
Of Saturn in
Virgo.
Virgo?
So yep, Saturn in Virgo ruled by Mercury. Yeah, in fourth
Mercury,
house,
which
which is
with
burned
the
by the
sun
sun.
and the moon.
Yeah.
And it's also that quality of the challenge of being too close to the sun, like just
Mhm.
this not an expression, not an ease of expression. So we can see that the birth experience, the energy around this, and I'm not saying Noreen, but around this pregnancy, around this child to come. It's not personal
Mhm.
to you, but you will have perceived it as such. But there's a big challenge here. Um, and if we even think about the third house as our speech and the transactional dialogue or the things that we communicate around, there's a big problem here. That's literally what that is. Um,
Yeah.
and so there's
And
a
part of the things what Roshin was saying today, like I wasn't, I was always silenced as a child. I was never allowed to speak my feelings, which became a huge problem. Like in my marriage and in my
yeah,
relationships, and like that's part of the reason why I have high conflict relationships.
right.
And then now that I'm so much older and I've done so many things to work through my problems, I realize that I'm replaying that in like work situations and stuff like that. Not that I start conflicts, but I put myself into high conflict jobs where I'm the one who has to resolve. I like even I did a master's in conflict management and resolutions, and then I put myself in those jobs just so I would have to resolve other people's conflicts.
Right.
And then it became so overwhelming. Like
Mhm.
at one point, I was driving to work crying every day. And I'm like, why do I keep putting myself in these situations? And then I realized I could stop this at any moment and not have to do it.
Yes. And that's where you when we see this in the astrology, that's where we get to the point where we say, you see how the pattern is. Then you step a little distance away from it and you say, oh, I can do something about this. I don't have, this is not me having to live this life. This is me in the experience of the life that I was born into, and I can work through it differently. So I want to, for yourself or for everybody else, I want to understand how the notion of being silenced as a child shows up in the chart. So does anybody want to jump in, or Noreen, you can keep going if you want.
Well, I know the sun is burning the Mercury because my third house is ruled by Mercury and the sun's burning the Mercury. And
And then what's in the third house?
in the well, I have the Saturn, but I was also my parents when they divorced because they had four at that time they had four children together. We're bigger now, but at that time they had four children together, and the only resolution they came to was my father keeps the boys, my mother keeps the girls, and then my mother moved across the country, so she moved 3,000 miles away, and I was separated by my father by 3,000 miles, and that was really difficult for me because I love my father so much, and I think that's Saturn, but Saturn's also separation from siblings.
Yeah.
But then I also read that the North Node in the third house means that you have a lot of anger towards your siblings. And I had high conflict towards my, no?
I wouldn't say off the bat that that's what that represents. It is about having to find your way towards what's in the third house. That's really the thing. So I wouldn't label it as having anger. This may have been an
Yeah,
interpretation that the person was giving of yours, but don't be
I
wary.
read it online.
Don't
Yeah.
don't use those cookie cutter ways of looking at things, because it can't possibly be the case for everyone who has a north node in the third. It's about finding your voice fundamentally in the context of your third house. In this case,
Oh,
within the early childhood, you,
yeah.
you were kind of told to sit in your corner. That's the south node Pisces, and the
Mhm.
north node, whoever. So Mar, you can just unmute yourself and jump in if you'd like, so you can add something here if you want.
I wanted to answer your question of the speech, and I want to see how do I connect this. So the ruler of the third, we have it in a fourth, and can we say that it's abroad? It's 6 degrees from Pluto, which can transform and change things. But then, oh, apologies. But then we have Chiron in 11th house. Oh, apologies, it's not Gemini, it's Taurus. Oh, okay, apologies. That's not gonna do. I thought it's
No, no,
Gemini.
but who is ruling Chiron?
Venus,
And what does
oh,
Venus rule?
uh, Venus rules the well, the fifth Oh yeah, it's a Libras.
You're,
Okay, okay.
you're making the right connection, but I think you're not fully finishing the task. So you're making the right connection. That Chiron is huge here. It's trining that Saturn, which is semi-sextiling the Mars, which which is sextiling the Mars, which is semi-sextiling almost again to the degree, like really perfecting the Sun and the Moon and that Mercury. So this we see as this is like I kind of describe that as when you're driving and there's a car that's in your blind spot, or if you're
Oh,
in an elevator and there's somebody here and it's kind of too uncomfortable and they're too close, but you know they're there, but you just can't really get along with them, or you would wish they would just get out, leave you alone. And so that's this discomfort of the semi-sextile. And so you really picked up on something important there. The Chiron opposition to the brother. Mars is the brother.
mhm.
The brother.
But also
Oh, yeah. And
North
I was
Node is
separated from my
unknown
brothers.
territory.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that one.
Yeah, no, this is really, really strong. And so we see this early childhood is really quite challenging. And where is the challenge? It's very, very much in the home. It's got to do with parenting. It's got to do with mother, father, and siblings. And so what that does is it establishes a foundation for everything that Renee comes out into the world. You see? So there's something that is, by definition, she has interiorized, and that's part of the challenge of having this moon. I was talking about the quality of the moon in the fourth house, where often people find that that's a cozy place for the moon, maybe, not necessarily, because what is the quality, just let's say the technical quality of the moon. What is a moon like? What does a moon in the sky do?
Um, shines light in the darkness. Is that what you mean?
Well,
Or
that's the optimistic version of it. What does it do in a very mechanical, practical way? What does the moon do all the time?
Changes.
It changes.
oh yeah.
Sometimes it's gorgeous and huge like it is right now. Sometimes it's invisible, can't see it like it is in this chart. It's changeable. So we want to always, when you're looking at the moon, look at the ruler. She's not comfortable. So there's a certain amount of duress here. And it's also, there's a semi-sextile between Venus and Pluto, who's ruled by Venus. And so that changeability should always be one of the keywords that you're thinking of in terms of the moon. It doesn't matter where the moon is. What is the changeability that is associated with this house and this person's experience of that? Okay. And one of the things that the fourth house represents is, of course, family and your home. There's a changeability around that. There's an instability around that. So be careful of the sort of level one description of what the houses represent or what the planets and so on. It's not going to align that way. That's way too shallow to be able to understand the planet and how it's really going to act for the person. So a moon in the fourth house, not so great, actually, not so easy. It's in a place where there's that's the relationship to the individual. How do I feel about myself? How do I feel about my security? How do I feel about my family? How do I feel about how do I feel? I'm told to shut up all the time.
Mhm.
My feelings are irrelevant. My parents don't care. Just shut up. Just stay and then separate with me from my siblings. And that is the source of pain. It comes through, again, this Venus ruling the Chiron retrograde in the future, the vision for how I fit into society, the way I look forward into my life, my sense of what I am worth, this Chiron in Taurus, my sense of what I am valued for or what I value myself for is damaged by all of these functions. And so there can be even an ambiguity around things like money. Oh, I don't know about money. It's important to me, but I probably spend more than I gain, probably spend more than I take in, even though I might take in a lot of money. I might have
Mhm.
difficulty holding it. Why? I'd like somebody to tell me. It might be Maureen, Noreen, anybody. Renee. Why?
Oh, I love nice things. Yeah.
The bling bling because of the sun, Venus, and who's ruling the sun? The sun is ruling that Jupiter. Who rules the sun?
V Venus.
She's not happy, is she? So who's
Yeah. Oh no, she's in. Yeah, she's in
and that
detriment. Yeah.
Mars is in opposition to Chiron. See, so all of this is describing also the relationship to money and value and self-worth. What is the other meaning of the second house? I often describe that in family. Family.
Yeah.
Hello, family. What is my self-worth in the context of my childhood, my parents, my family? It's not exactly as things appear. So there can be an overdoing of it. Maybe what happens is you tend to pick up the tab, or you're the ones you're maybe exuberant and helping everybody else and giving money away, or you might shop also for the, like you mentioned, you like the pretty things, and so it's a way of feeling better about yourself. But the core issue here is to resolve that and to try and resolve the original wounding around not having your space, not even having your identity, not even having the name. And you know, it's a very, there's a process here that is both in the experience of the family lineage, that you might be able to trace this kind of thing going back generations.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who wasn't heard, somebody who wasn't seen, somebody who wasn't allowed to show up, that you might find in your grandparents and your cousins, aunts, uncles, great grandparents, whatever. And it may have
Yeah.
been also for a very good reason. It's not safe to show up. This is also part of the Mars dynamic. What if it's not safe to show up?
Well, I think part of that is all the abuses that happened. Like, we didn't speak about it, but there's a lot of abuse. And when I would speak about it with my mother, or I'd say I want to, or I try to talk about things outside of like just me and my mom or just me and my dad, then my mother was an Aries, and she had so much trauma growing up. She never sought out help for her trauma. Otherwise, I think things could have gone much better. But her response to everything was with anger and violence. And so and it wasn't just that, it was like terrible things with siblings, you know, with my father's response to everything is yelling at me, and it's like both parents. And so I just learned, do not speak.
Yeah.
Otherwise it turns in, and I'm not a high, like I'm not a fighter. The thing is, I had so many fighters. There's so many fighters in my family, and I'm a Libra. I am not a fighter. I want everybody to be okay. And so that's why I took on the role as conflict management. And that's that's the skill I learned by being with a family of fighters and in a family, abusive family.
So yes, for sure. We can see the abuse. There's lots of, we won't have time today to go into these things, but we can see the abuses there. Whenever I see Pluto in the fourth, especially when there's this chain of command that's not comfortable, we know that there's something to inquire about. That's not a comfortable place. So what I would like to say, because we need to wrap this up, what I would like to say is to understand that the ultimate dispositor in all of this is this Mars that is powerful. It's in its own sign, but it's that nighttime Mars, like I alluded to earlier. It's that Mars that takes revenge, or it's like vengeance served up cold on a platter, or it's a little bit sneaky, or it'll do things in a way that's a little more covert. It definitely has a hair trigger response to things, can be super angry. So what you want to also work with, especially because it's really in that feeling of I don't dare express my anger, partly because my image depends on everybody else's comfort. How I feel depends on everybody else's comfort, is to really work with that anger and don't deny it. Because if you deny it, it's going to turn against you, and it can cause illness. It can cause, disruption in relationships. It can cause a lot of unnecessary sort of self-punishing, self-abuse almost. Like you might find yourself doing things really against your own best interests. And so you want to work with that Mars. You definitely need to bring that Mars home and internalize the power of that Mars. Okay, I'll just take a question from Dina, and then we'll have to go because it's we're really moving out of. Yeah.
I can just really recommend, because I read a book of Melanie Reinhardt lately about that Chiron. And when Chiron is so opposite that Mars, and my Mars is also not so good at 29 degrees of Libra, and I've got also Chiron Mars aspect, but sports does help.
Mhm.
Any kind of sport. Is it the gym? Is it whatever you like? Yoga at home with YouTube? Really, go for sports is helping. It helps a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's really also Mars is there in the fifth house, by the way. So that's all even better because Mars is an athlete. The fifth house is about athletes. So that's a great way of using that Mars. It can be interpreted as just building strength, build strength, and build that sense of capacity. Because the Mars is giving you capacity and you're looking everywhere but that Mars. So really important. It's what gives you the determination. You know, that sextile between Mars and Saturn is what allows you to push your way through in spite of everything. But it's not necessarily, this is one great example of realizing where what is actually a survival mechanism turns against you at a certain point because it's taking away from who you need to be. It's taking away from how you can connect to yourself because then you're just soldiering on. That Mars Saturn, you always want to think in terms of policemen, soldiers, the showing up for duty. I'm here now, and carry on, just carry on, stiff upper lip, and all that kind of thing. So you want to embody that, but internalize that, and find that inner strength, and might be also from that physical place, which is really helpful. We're going to have to leave that at that today. I invite you to ask your questions in the next session or in the chat group. If you haven't joined us in the chat group, if you would like to, the Telegram group, where we haven't really got things off the ground yet, but we will.
We need more Mars over there.
Yeah, we need more Mars in the Telegram group. We need somebody to throw up questions or problems or whatever so we can handle them. So I thanks so much for being here, especially for those of you who've soldiered on now for 5 or 6 hours or however long this has been, and we won't go on these long sessions. This will be the only one through the session. Next time we meet is back at 3 p.m. Europe, noon. What is it? No, 3 p.m. Europe, 9 a.m. Eastern, and 6 a.m. Pacific. All right, so that's back to our normal programming since it seems to work for most of us here. All right, take good care, everybody, and we will see you in a week's time, if not before. And thanks for your homework as well. I'm loving the homework.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye, everybody.
Bye.